Don't Be a Meathead. Mark Thomas here with Dr. Alan Manison. And we cover a wide variety of topics on Don't Be a Meathead. And today, one that is near and dear to Alan's heart and he's really passionate about. I think partially because you've had this experience, right? But today we're going to talk about biking or cycling, as some people want to call it. And there's different variations of it, right? Some people do it indoors, some people do it outdoors, some people are following an app to do it. But you have seen some of the pitfalls of cycling. So let's get into it.
Yes, I've had the honor of treating, if you want to call that, Mark, of treating lots of cycling injuries. And I'm not referring to people just falling off their bikes or getting hit. I'm referring to musculoskeletal injuries, discovering on mid-age people that they're osteoporotic. They're definitely sarcopenic, which means osteoporosis we all know about. We all know it's a loss of bone mass and density and strength. But what we don't consider a lot of times, and no one really talks about, and physicians don't touch on it too much, is sarcopenia, which is age-related loss of muscle and performance. And so we tend to think like old people. You look at old people, they're all hunched over, their muscles are sagging. These are the kind of people we think of. But what if I were to tell you that this begins with avid cyclists in college with women? It's that early on. And we're now in a new era of cycling where people who before wouldn't want to go outside when it was raining or snowing or the weather is inclement go in their basement or they go in their garage and they bike and they bike and they bike. And if they're biking more than 15, 20 hours a week, they're going to be susceptible now to osteoporosis and sarcopenia, just like avid professional and amateur cyclists. This is a big problem and no one's really talking about it, but boy, we're seeing it a lot more. Orthopedically, they're seeing it. On my end, on the sports rehab side, we're seeing it. And it's something that can be dealt with easily if we can get the information out. But that's what we're doing here because people think they're fit by biking and what they're doing is creating a world of hurt for themselves now and in the future.
If you watch something like the Tour de France, you can see a little bit of that if you really pay attention to the cyclist bodies when they're off the bike, and you kind of see like this big head and then a smaller body. But
Like
truthfully,
lollipop. Yeah, they look like a lollipop. They have very little
truthfully,
muscle tone. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
terms of performance, it behooves them to actually be lighter. So at that level of competition, they're willing to sacrifice whatever it takes.
Like you said, if you're in the Tour de France or you're training for something super high level, and that's your entire life, and that's your income source, and that's what you have to do, you make that sacrifice for a certain period of time. And we can look across all sports and realize that sacrifices are made. Look at football, with the brain injuries afterward and the musculoskeletal injuries, and guys in their 30s can barely walk. You make that sacrifice. But for the hundreds of thousands or millions of people who are just recreational cyclists or maybe compete at a low level or get on Zwift platforms or Ruvi or IndyVelo and, are cycling and they're in their basement training really, really hard, there's absolutely no reason to be killing yourself, literally, by doing this. People have to start taking a look at things and realizing, I'm doing this too much and I need to change what I'm doing. So, I just want to touch on a couple studies on that. And these are in the blog. So when you read the blog, definitely touch on them. Pro cyclists suffer from bone loss and muscle loss. That's in the research. And that's why so many cyclists are starting to train, strength train off the bike. It's an absolute necessity. There's zero reason not to. People who run and bike say, oh, but if I weight train, I'll get heavier and then I can't move. Hogwash. There's absolutely no truth to that at all. We know that the problem is worse for women than for men. There are hormonal reasons for that. There are musculoskeletal reasons for that as well. We can go into pelvic shape differences between men and women, muscle density changes. That's very well understood. And we also know that as we get older, it gets worse because we tend to recover at a slower rate. So these are things that we have to just kind of consider as we move forward in this discussion.
I think it's easy for people to really get, what should we say, locked into their comfort zone. And the bike becomes something of a very comfortable place for people. And they just end up repeating that habit and they like the way it feels and they get on the bike and they keep getting on the bike. And for some people, they need to find things that are no impact, right? And for whatever reason, the bike serves those purposes. But I think what we find in almost everything we talk about when it comes to sports is variability is really important in training for anything.
I think on the non-weight bearing side, that's great, but we all need to be weight bearing. Strength training, resistance training is an absolute unless we're dead. And even then, you should be training underground. I mean, like it's that important. And we, women learn from, men too, but I'm saying women learn about osteoporosis because they tend to be a little more prone to it with hormonal changes post-menopause. But weight bearing is very important, and so weight bearing activity is very important. So we get on a bike and we start pedaling. And of course, cycling is non-weight bearing. And so I used to get in these discussions with people on the difference with forums, everything else. Oh, but when I get out of the saddle, it's weight bearing. It's not. It's a little bit of a closed kinetic chain activity, but it's not the same as deadlifting or squatting properly or doing lunge activities. It's traditionally it is a non-weight bearing activity, and if it were to be a truly weight bearing, we wouldn't see all the amateur and pro cyclists getting osteoporotic and sarcopenic. These guys and gals are leading the way into the sarcopenia and into osteoporosis. The studies are done on them. They're recognizing it. So people who are in their basement or the garage cycling 15, 20 hours a week now are definitely not excluded from that type of problem. They're actually training as much as pro cyclists now. The difference now is that pro cyclists are getting in the gym because the studies are showing they need to do it. Most of our recreational cyclists are not, and that is, creating a problem. The studies are very clear. We all need resistance training. We need it as we age. And we also need to understand that too much of any particular exercise, Mark, is bad for us. I don't care what it is, whether we run too much, bike too much. I don't care if it's even weight training too much. We need to take a break. We need to have varied activities, and that's healthier for our body.
How about if I have one of the assault bikes or rogue echo bikes where it also involves your upper body, right? You're not just pedaling and keeping your hands, static, but your arms are involved in the activity. Does that change it up at all?
Well, let me ask you this. Are you doing that 15, 20 hours a week?
No, I mean,
No. How
no,
long
I
can you
wouldn't.
do an assault bike for? How long can you train on that for?
Yeah, they're hard. They're really hard.
Right.
They're not for really long-term riding.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on Zwift discussions, where people are like, "Oh, I did the Four Horsemen the other." Well, the people don't know the names of rides, but I did a 5 hour ride the other day, and then 2 days ago I did a 4 hour ride, and today I'm doing 3 hours, and tomorrow I'm going for 100 kilometers, and it's insane. There's an issue that we're dealing with, and it's like an addiction. I call it exercise addiction. Some people call it exercise bulimia, and some people also call it orthorexia. I mean, I think exercise addiction is a good way to go. People get so wrapped up and so tied in and so locked in that they actually exercise themselves to death. And that's on the cycling community what's happening. You'll see an occasional post by someone who's had rhabdomyolysis where their kidneys have given out from so much muscle fatigue and damage at a cell level. But that's like the tip of the iceberg. You're not going to see most people getting that. When you start joining group rides and, oh, where's the group leader? Oh, his back is hurting him. Oh, his knee's bad. Oh, his shoulder's hurting. These people are wearing themselves out and they think to resolve this issue, I'll just bike more. It's safer. It's not weight bearing, blah, blah, blah. It's getting to be outright dangerous and an addiction for a lot of people, and they need to get off the bike.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can satisfy some of that addiction with throwing in other types of training, right? To counterbalance all this and just,
You
suit your
have
body
to
better.
yeah. I mean, that will be, that will be a big thing I'll talk out, I'll talk about at the end here. People need to start assessing their recovery. If you're not looking at how well you're recovering, if you're biking 3 to 4 hours a day, you need a couple of days off.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a pro in the Tour de France, it's a little different. You have people catering to you 24 hours a day. You have perfect nutrition. You have an entire team of people helping you. You or me biking in our basement or in our garage, we don't have a support group that's with us 20, maybe your family's cheering you on or something, but no one who's really taking care of you 24/7 to make sure your nutritional needs are met, making sure that your system remains alkaline versus acidic. Whoever checks for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that
Uh-huh.
systemic acidity leads to leaching of the calcium. There's your osteoporosis. We need sarcopenia. When we have sarcopenia and we're losing muscle mass and we're getting toward rhabdo where things are just breaking down, who's assessing that until it happens?
Right.
Nobody. This is really, 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 really dangerous. And it's happening too frequently. And it's all the time. And another study I'll touch on, which is, of course, in the blog, is excessive exercise increases systemic inflammation. Do we want inflammation as an athlete? Mark, you should know this one
Absolutely.
right off the top of your head,
Absolutely
right?
not.
No, why don't we want inflammation? What does inflammation cause?
Problems.
Pain, lots of pain, problems, dysfunction, irritation in the body. It leads to a lot of neurological psychological stress and everything else. So I'm biking 15, 20 hours a week, pounding my body into oblivion. And guess what? I'm creating inflammation. And that's why we're getting more of the musculoskeletal injuries on top of the bone loss. The inflammation creates more of an acidic environment. The acidic environment leaches calcium off the bones, great storage of bones, right? And then that gives us the osteoporosis, the sarcopenia. We are always either, we stay in a neutral state, or we're catabolic, or we're anabolic. Anabolic people think, ooh, steroids. Anabolic really just means, are we able to build muscle? Catabolic is we're breaking down muscle, and then we're neutral state. If we're biking too much and not doing other things, we're catabolic. We're ripping our body down. We need to do something to create a need for muscle, to build it up. And that's where the strength training component comes in.
Also nutrition, obviously, to help with that muscle building and recovery.
Yeah, that's a great point too. To touch on nutrition, protein needs for most people are extremely deficient. This is not arguable. This is in the research. I could throw out numbers from the International Society of Sports Nutritionists. People would go, "Oh my God, that seems too high." Let's get some things straight here. Extra protein in the diet does not create kidney damage. That's complete fallacy. The people go, "Oh, you have a nitrogen balance." So that's completely untrue. If you already have kidney issues, that's another subject. If you don't, you need more protein. We need leucine. You cannot build muscle without leucine. It's one of the branched chains amino acids, along with leucine, isoleucine, and valine, I believe. And then we have branched chain aminos. We have the essentials that go above that. So when we're dealing with leucine, you need about 2.5 grams per serving of protein to build muscle. You're not going to get that unless you're really keeping an eye on that and eating the proper foods, getting the proper shakes in. And by the way, those who are vegan, I'm not an anti-vegan person per se, but you need anywhere between 40 to 100% more protein because you're lacking leucine in the diet, and you will not have the ability to build the muscle as someone who can take in whey or egg or other forms of more bioavailable, lower acidic actually proteins. That's very important. So yes, nutrition, Mark, is an absolute for recovery, but it's one piece of it. There are other pieces, and we have to assess those as well.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to touch on here before we exit talking about biking?
Yeah. The three things, where I go with this at the end. So it's like, oh my God, it's so much data. What do we do with it? Number one, be realistic with your cycling goals and time spent on the bike. Don't overdo it. It's a form of exercise and enjoyment. Unless you're one of the, I'll throw a number. Guess how many pro cyclists there are, Mark, in the world? Do you know?
Boy, I don't know. I mean, who can call themselves a pro? I don't know. A few
I mean, they're
thousand.
pro. They're competing for money. They're on teams. It's about 1,300. That's it
Okay.
in the whole world. We might have hundreds of thousands or millions of recreational cyclists, and maybe 10, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50,000 avid amateurs that are competing and stuff. The rest of us are on our bike for exercise. We're not going pro. We're not competing in the Tour de France. There's no need to kill ourselves. Our heart's going to respond. Our body's going to respond. But let's do it in a positive fashion. Let's not overtrain. Let's have realistic goals. I want to have, perhaps have an effect on my cholesterol and blood pressure. I want to exercise more to feel good. I want to be a little more fit. I want to lose fat weight. Great. Those are great goals. It's very, very realistic. And guess what? We can track those. We can track our recovery easily that way. Feed your body properly, as Mark alluded to. Make sure your nutrition is proper. If you don't know what to do with your nutrition, talk to a functional nutritionist. We have Kara Zauer on our team. She's a double master. She's knows everything. She's a genius. I'm so happy she's with us. She's going to be doing talks and blogs on topics of protein for youth athletes and everything else you can think of. She's amazing. And then honestly, get off your bike. Please get off your bike, get in the gym, get with a functional movement trainer, do what you need to do, but do muscle training to keep your body healthy and fit as you age. These are things that aren't an idea. These are things that must be done to maximize our health as we age.
Okay. If people want to find out some more detail and read your blog, where can they find it?
Find it at don'tbemeathead.com in the blog section. That's where they all are. We have a YouTube channel. Obviously, we're here at Don't Be a Meathead. And please subscribe and tell your friends about us and subscribe and spread the word. We want to feel the niche in the industry to discuss these topics and help people perform better and feel better. And honestly, live longer. Why not?
I'm all for that, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. You got it, Mark. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.